Welcome to the 254 Rugby Show. We're live at the RFUA grounds, home of Lunch Bar Queens. We must say thank you to Kenya Harlequins for giving us this opportunity to shoot at this fantastic venue once again. We've been here all night following the Vegas Sevens. Kenya not doing too well, winning one, losing one, which we didn't really expect. But hey, they've still got one more game to redeem themselves against South Africa. It'll be a tough game. With me, as usual, my co-host, Benjamin Ayimba. We must say thank you to also Famous Grouse for making this opportunity available. It's been an exceptional weekend. It can only get better.
I think they've done well. They've given us the support that we're looking to for our fourth program yet, and we're looking at support from a world brand like Famous Grouse. We're quite excited about this.
Excellent. And I mean, we'll just drift away from the Sevens just for a moment, because with us we have a distinguished rugby man, Oduor Gangla, chairman of Impala Rugby. Big news coming out this weekend. Impala joining up with Saracens, a partnership that got me excited as an individual when I read it. I think it's fantastic news. Gangla, tell us more about how did this come about?
Thank you very much, Charlie and Benja, for having me on the show. The Impala Saracens was announced early this week. It's a very transformational partnership for our club. There are various buckets to it in terms of Saracens Limited, which is currently top of the table in the Guinness Premiership, providing a range of technical, commercial and administrative support towards Impala Rugby. Let's start with the first bucket, which is technical, because that really is our core business. On the technical side, we've agreed that they'll be working very closely with our technical bench, literally planning of sessions, reviewing games after sessions, having weekly calls, just so that we are all on the right track. You can imagine Saracens have over the years built a huge knowledge pool from a rugby sense, with which they can share with a club such as ours, which has been successful but is still on a growth trajectory. So that's the first bucket. Secondly, there's the question about coach secondments. We've agreed that every season there'll be 2 coach visits from Saracens coaches. We had one visit in December. Owen Davies, who's a IRB level 3 coach, was here for a week with the team. It was very well received, and I think the team is still building on those bonds. We have a second coach who will be here in a few weeks' time. I won't tell you the name, but he's a very big rugby property, and hopefully, if you allow, he'll probably come into the show as well and just give the perspective on the Saracen side. Thirdly, we have agreed that every year we will second at least 2 players aged between 18 and 20 as trialists to the Saracens Academy, with a pathway to the sort of Saracens club. An important conditionality on that is we don't want our players to play for England. We still want them to be available both for Kenya Sevens and Kenya 15s, even in that environment. And Saracens are very sensitive to that. So those are probably the 3 main technical buckets that happen. On the sponsorship, on the commercial side, the driver for Saracens has always been for you to grow as a club and to attract more corporate partners. You need to show a much bigger representation than just being a UK-based club. And the Saracens Global Network has selected 8 cities. There's London, there's Abu Dhabi in the UAE, there's Malaysia, there's Moscow, there's Impala in Nairobi. They've chosen Tonga. There's a country which has enormous rugby growth potential. There's the US and there's Brazil. So each of these are high growth economies. They are also countries where rugby is growing very, very fast. And the intention is to have a Saracens presence in each of them. It helps you when you go talk to global sponsors. They're just not happy to be limited to one territory. So this gives their sponsors a much greater visibility. Impala becomes sort of their beachhead into the rest of Africa. And in doing so, we will attract commercial benefits in terms of growing our revenue. Ultimately, all clubs need financing. The union is never going to finance you. So you must look for ways and means to improve your offering, both to your local sponsors, but also attract international sponsors. If you're part of the Saracens network, for instance, when it comes to procurement of some of the things, be it kit, be it equipment, you're doing it off a much bigger base. So you get very good pricing. So those savings become essential. Supplements, they have a global supplement sponsor. They have a global media sponsor and a range of other sponsors. And all of them are quite keen to work with us. So it's going to take time to realize the full benefit, but we think it puts us on a very unique trajectory. Also, our local sponsors, the likes of Resolution Insurance and Standard Chartered, are not being kicked out. So it's a win-win for everybody. They will also get the benefit of being part of that global platform. So for instance, CNBC was doing a commercial, and our player and Kenya vice captain at 15s, Vincent Moses, currently in the UK. Resolution Insurance will get the benefit of that. They'll be on CNBC, courtesy of Impala. So now, in addition to all the benefits we give them, they've got this sort of as a free, if I may call it that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, sponsors are happy, the club is growing, and the like. On the administrative side, Saracens is professionally run. It's a limited company, and they've done all sorts of things. It's not in terms of being a professional side. Structuring the administrative setup well so that it's commercially sustainable. And we are looking to learn from that. A good example, Saracens last year hosted a game, the big derby with Harlequins. Got over 84,000 fans at Wembley. All of a sudden you look and say, no, at Wembley.
At Wembley.
At Wembley. And they're playing again end of March. And Wembley again. They're already marketing for
Can
it.
Impala Saracens play Queens on the same day as well?
Yeah,
At Kasarani.
potentially we could. And there are all sorts of synergies. But I think for us, it's to also now look bigger at our products, like Impala Floodlit, our Kenya Cup games, our touch rugby. How can we exploit it fully?
Yes.
So a challenge for a new general manager. We also want to have 70, 80,000 people.
Which is a new thing also at Impala, the general manager bit, because we've never had one there.
Absolutely.
What was the thought process to that? Was this a big influence? Was the partnership with Saracens a big influence in employing a general manager?
In part, yes, but I think if you look over the last 2 years since I took over, we've sort of broken up a lot of our products so that each of them runs independently.
Yes.
We are talking to a lot of commercial partners about different buckets of the products, and it's just impossible for one to manage everything if you don't have a proper professional structure. So this is sort of what we're doing, such that we can have someone who is ultimately responsible for Impala Rugby's profit and loss, with clear targets of what needs to be achieved. I think probably from next season, if all our planning comes together, we want to now move to the next step, actually contract players, start paying players to play, because we are a rugby club. That's what we do.
Before you actually go there, and we can delve more into that a little later, I appreciate the whole what is happening, what's going to happen, the whole structure process. What I'm very interested about, especially when I saw this, is like, how did this come about? You know,
Yes, that's a big question,
you know, I mean, how
why-
did it happen?
why Impala as
Why
opposed
Impala?
to
Why
Harlequins
not
or
your
Rugby's?
Kenya Commercial Bank? I mean, where did this happen?
Maybe Charlie is asking this because they've got London Harlequins, Texas
No,
Harlequins,
and for me,
Brisbane
what
Harlequins,
this does is it opens up our eyes. And when I look at Kenya Harlequins, and I'm wondering, you should have
Why
had
this-
something like this with
way
London
before.
Harlequins.
Yes.
I mean, for years. I mean, this should have been happening. But this is amazing. For me, it's amazing. But where did it happen? How can even the other clubs? Because I think it's important. I think Impala would be interested
Yes.
in other clubs building these sort of partnerships.
Because to help us grow.
So the game grows. Where did this happen? When was it? Someone you guys met up in London? Hey, how are you doing? I'm from Impala. Can we do this? And we're interested in this.
without being modest, Benja knows Impala is always a trailblazer. We try to set the bar. We have a think tank within the Impala group which is constantly engaged and engaging on ways to grow the club. But this is one of those chance encounters that you have that then develop into something big. But in a nutshell, we've had a relationship, very informal, with Saracens. The CEO of Saracens was actually the team manager of Africa Leopards way back in 2005. And so he got to know a couple of Impala players, and I think there's been, but the moment Saracens set up this network, then they knew Impala, just given the history. From the national team players, the Africa Leopards involvement with Innocent Simiyu and Dan Weku way back, I think it was 2005.
Yes.
So they already had a reference point now. Then we had the success of Benja and Oscar with the Kenya Sevens. Again, that helps. One of the things I keep telling our players all the time, the national team is so important. Some opportunities will only come to you if you're on that global stage. And we were lucky we had trailblazers like Benja and Innocent out there putting our name out and saying, by the way, this Impala is the top club in the region. Saracens want to be affiliated with a top club. So we had the benefit of that.
We'll talk about, we can talk more about that in the next segment. I mean, and there's a lot more we need to ask you. And
I'm quite interested in seeing how the development, how
it grows and how it helps Impala, the club. But thank you very much for that so far, and we'll get back. It's 254 Rugby Show. Get in touch with us. Questions for our chairman from Impala, rugby guru himself, former Kenya number 8, a man who knows his rugby, well versed with the game. But we're very interested in this partnership between Impala and the Saracens, and we'll hear more from him after the break. Welcome back to the 254 Rugby Show. It's our Vegas weekend, Famous Grouse sponsored. We're here at the Kenya Harlequins Rugby Club, and with us, our distinguished guest, Impala chairman, Oduor Gangla, and he was talking to us earlier about this unique sponsorship, this thing that got us really excited between Impala Club and the Saracens. And Gangla, back to sort of something we were discussing earlier, and I was asking how this came about and how we see it developing Impala Rugby, and you've told us all the intricacies. Now, Impala is going through some sort of a rough patch at the moment, and like every team does. How do you see this sort of partnership building the team and getting it to where we knew Impala to be?
I think the season probably started very well for us. We had a very competitive sevens campaign. I think our best in about 3 seasons.
True. And
then we've had a very horrific run with injuries. And that's the reason why the team has not performed. We've had about 13 first-team players out injured.
And the most promising ones.
And the most promising ones. All our Kenyan Sevens players are out injured. A couple of the Kenyan 15 players have been injured. So if you don't have 13 of your top players, it's very difficult for you to perform to your standard. I think Manu is only missing 2 players, Rooney and Van Persie. And you can see
personally, I was really excited for Impala this season. Yeah. Of course, being an Impala, it's, and I looked at them playing sevens, and I thought, wow, this is exactly the team I want to see playing the long version of the game. And they're very good footballers. Unfortunately, of course, they got injured and we couldn't see them on the ground. What we are hoping with the partnership, especially, are we going to get other personnel on board, say medics, to help us with our injuries, advice from the international partners to bring in a bit of that medical expertise that they've got to get the players stronger and probably less injury prone?
I think that's part of the whole arrangement to ensure that all the aspects. I think strength and conditioning is a key facet of the game which can't be ignored. And but it's very difficult to understand how we just got into this sort of calamitous run of injuries. It's also been very costly for the club.
Okay, and also knowing from having a bit of history from the club, have we had issues with leadership in the field? Is it something that has concerned as a chairman? Has it concerned you that when we go into the field, most of the time we never had that prominent leader who stood out and said, guys, let's do this. Given there's a lot of injuries, but when I look at some of those games, I'm thinking, they don't have that strength, that mental strength to carry on, because there's no one or two people who are standing as leaders.
I don't want to describe it as lack of leadership per se. I just think probably we haven't grown as many leaders as we would have liked. But also, if one or two key players were missing, then you saw the impact. But overall, I think a lot of it is just about self-belief more than anything else. We've had, if you look at the team that played, especially between October to December, easily 10 of the first 15 are playing their first season at Impala. Yes. So it's a new team.
Very true, but your results were all over the place, and one result that really stands out for me, and I can pick it off the top of my head, was the 19-0 against KCB. Easy, and KCB today stand as one of the front runners to win the title, and Impala are nowhere. So I'm wondering, and when I look at your team lists, and yes, I agree, you've got a lot of injuries, but when I look at through your team list and I look at the players, you've got some outstanding players. On paper, you've got some very, very good players. As a chairman, I know it's difficult. You're not on the pitch. You're not the coach. As a chairman, how do you address these sort of issues?
I think life is about cycles, and we are sort of at a bad point of the curve, but we just have to keep working. We had dinner with the senior players earlier this week, and I was telling them, we can't leave this club worse than we found it. Otherwise, we would all have failed. We're in this journey together. It doesn't help that you start saying we're going to sack the coach, and we're going to sack the captain, and you can't sack everybody.
Thank God. You're not going the RFU way.
No. The thing is this, we've chosen good people to do certain roles for the club.
We believe in that.
We believe in them. We just have to give them time. People forget that the championship side of Impala from the early 2000s was built over a period of 5 years. People forget that. If you look at Nakuru, who are now probably the top side,
9 years.
it's been built over time.
It's been forever.
9 years.
They've been using the same squad of players for a very long time, so they're settled. If you look at Stratton, they've had the same squad for the last 4 or 5 years.
5 years, yes.
So we're into year 2. So why are people worried? I'm not worried.
I mean, and that's so refreshing. Personally, I feel that's very refreshing to hear from a chairman.
Especially for us, because it wasn't very clear which direction Impala was going. And we didn't get that, because when, like Charlie says, when there was that 19-0 result, that was, for us, that was an exciting turning point. And when it dipped again, we couldn't understand really what happened, whether they just sparked for the moment. But it's good again you've come out and told us about how much younger the players are, and we need to get that consistency. Now, the senior players that have been involved with Impala, I see a lot of them not breaking into the national team. Is that a concern, or is it something that is deliberate from the club, or what really is the issue?
I'm surprised you say that, because this week we just got 7 players invited to the training group for the Kenya 15s. I think 7 out of 46 is over 16%. I'm sure we put in more players than maybe a few clubs who are ahead of us in the log. So I'm not too perturbed about that. And I keep saying we want as many Impala players into the national team.
Because that's what counts.
It really matters. And secondly, we are not going to fight about this availability. That, oh, we don't have 5 players, we don't have...
So that's pretty decent.
No, we're not. And it's a policy. If you're called to the national team, you must go.
It's an argument we had here, and in fact it's good you mentioned it, Charlie. I think we had that issue, because what happens when the Vodacom Cup is on, which of course is an issue we need to discuss. As the chairman, I think you've taken a very bold step in making your players know that there's no games being skipped. Whoever it is that is there is going to represent Impala, which I think is a very bold step. Is that something that was always an Impala policy, or is it something that you just recently?
In 2002, we had the Commonwealth Games. I think both of you were involved in the Commonwealth Games.
Yes.
And
Yes,
Impala,
we were, yeah.
despite missing all its top players, went on and won the league
Yes.
and the cup
Yes.
with the guys who were available.
Yes.
We won the 7th circuit in 2001, played Safari Sevens with a lot of players in the national
7
team.
actually out.
Yeah, so 9 actually. If you add the Scorpions,
The
I think
Scorpions,
we had
yes,
the
yes.
2
Oh,
players
yes,
in the
yes.
Scorpions.
It was 9.
So to us, this is nothing new. You can't, because the club will benefit when these players come back. Where are they going? They're going for 2 months and they come back, they'll play.
You need to speak to others.
Yeah, but yeah,
You need to speak to others.
and you see, as I said, there's 2 things that have come up from this particular discussion that are very refreshing for me. Number one is that you're ready to give your coaches time. I don't think I have seen this happening enough around the country, both at club level and more so we know at the national
Of
team
course,
level.
which has influenced everyone
Yes,
else.
we've both been victims of that. People are so hungry for success that they forget about the long
Building,
term,
the building
the
of
long term
success.
sort of product. And the other thing that you mentioned is the players,
Yes.
players disappearing from clubs or unavailability and stuff. And you're able to say, you know what, we
Let's
must continue
carry on.
playing our games. But how do you rub on that message
Onto the other
to your
clubs.
fellow chairman? Honestly,
Is this something you've discussed? Is it?
I
Do you
think-
have a forum?
because you seem to be the only one that saying that.
has
The rest
has
are not
same
interested.
Yes.
The truth is this, I understand the sponsor obligations and what you want your players to play, etc. But if you go the world over, yeah, when international games are being played, club games are still being played.
Yes.
The club has to be big, and that's why we've put in quite a lot on the recruitment, trying to get more players. We're running 3 sites at the moment, so that you can build sufficient depth. And also, we don't want sort of players coasting. A lot of people come and they just want to play ESS, etc.
And
We
just
want
carry
guys
on.
to aspire for the top. If you don't want to play for Kenya, to my mind, you shouldn't be at Impala. Because what are you doing? What are you
Breaking
doing?
the history, and that brings us to the other question, Charlie. There is of course the newly instituted Stanchart Impala Academy. I don't know how much time you've got, Charlie, but Oduor can tell us exactly what the plans are, because we spoke about the feeder system, especially the national team, and for me that is also a very good initiative, that we are now saying we need an academy to feed onto the second and the senior teams, and consistently producing players. Because looking at what is playing in Kenya now, going into 7 series without halfbacks, it is something that was never thought through 5 years back, 6 years back. With your academy, how is this set up, and how well are we seeing this going into another season?
I think, yeah, and good question, and it's something that I know he'll need a lot of time to sort of explain, because that's
a big
another
bucket.
it's
a very big bucket.
it's another interesting part of the game that I've seen Impala, and not only this season, more so even last season. I've seen something about the academy and growing up and whatever, and it's something that we'll talk about in the next segment. And I want to also talk about sponsor obligations, supporter obligations, and just player obligations, and how he's thinking and how we can rub it on to other clubs. And this is something that we'll tackle. We're with Oduor, the chairman of Impala. Of course, we're talking about this exciting partnership between Impala and Saracens. They are now called the Resolution Impala Saracens. Exciting times for Impala, and he'll tell us in the next segment how they want to develop their academy systems, and how we talk about player retaining, and also the key thing is, how do you keep your sponsors happy? We see you after the break. Welcome back to the 254 Rugby Show. We're here with Oduor Gangla, chairman of Impala Rugby. Oduor, as we said before we took the break, we talked about sponsors, sponsor obligations. We talked about fans, and I posed to you the question during the break was, you've got your 7 players playing. called to the national team. Congratulations, and I mean every club wants that. It's a sign of success. But if Impala was sitting in the playoff positions, I mean, would this be as easy a decision as you make it to say let them go and we'll continue fighting this fight?
I think it has to be an easy decision because of the club culture. Impala says very simply, we'll always do what's best in the interest of Impala Rugby. But if something involving Kenya comes, then Kenya will take precedence, which is a very different philosophy from other clubs like our dear neighbors.
All clubs.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we truly believe that the players who maybe are not regulars in the first team, the difference between them and, say, the guys who make the national team, there's a difference, but it's not that big. I don't think it's that big. And what the guys who are coming through the ranks need to be reinforced, and people have to believe in them. If you believe in someone that is good enough to do the business, he'll go out and produce the goods for you. Yeah? But if you're already doubting on Tuesday, you've already lost, because you guys don't believe in them.
Yeah,
So let's believe in the players.
actually.
Third, you must have a very simple team system that any player can play in. So everyone knows the system, the patterns. It shouldn't be driven by individuals. At the moment, if you look at Impala having 7 players being called to Kenya 15, to me means that we have some very good players, but our team system is not as cohesive as you'd have liked. Because then you should be a team of really no stars. You just play in an Impala way, and everyone knows how Impala plays. So whoever plays, once you wear the red jersey, then you're up for the business.
I mean, that's fine. That's good on paper. You know, well said. You've played at the highest level. I mean, you guys played together.
Yeah,
you guys were class players, and it doesn't matter how cohesive the team is. Every team has its class players that actually make a difference at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you've got your team now, and I'll pick one player. Let's just pick, for instance, Neto Simiu. He's total class, and we know that he's total class. Whether that system at Impala is working or not, and the next player can fill him, it is very hard to fill that kind of boots, especially when it comes to playoff time. You've got your semi-final against Nakuru, and you've got Neto Simiu missing from your number 10 position.
Okay. Look at it, Kadu. Look at Canterbury. Canterbury won NPC, if I'm not wrong, without McCaw and without Carter. It's the same argument. They are class players, proven in the world. But there are certain competitions they don't play, but their club or their province still goes on to win. So why should we make exemption for Kenya? Because at times it's just not possible.
And totally agreed.
Because a year has 52 weeks. Look at it. Of those 52 weeks, at least you need off-season maybe be 3 months if you're lucky. I think now the off-season is actually shorter. Yeah. So you can't keep postponing games saying that we don't have players, we don't have players. If you do that, then the league will never end. So we have to make a choice. It's a painful choice, but it has to be made.
But okay, that's fine. That's a club choice. That's your choice as a chairman, and the club sits there. But how do you deal with your sponsors? Because your sponsors do not want to be associated with losers. The sponsors want to be associated with teams that are at the top of there. And I appreciate. I mean, you've got a very good and very loyal sponsor in Resolution Health. But let's talk about other clubs that maybe do not have that luxury, and they look at them and say, you know what, you guys came 5th.
Or was it deliberate?
Yeah.
Is it deliberate that when Impala is going out for a sponsor, they look for a sponsor who's friendly to that system they've got? Because to me, like Kado is saying, if I went to Omo, for example, and said, and they picked Harry for the best player, and they said, the only way we are going to look at this sponsorship again is if out of 23 games, if Harry is fit, he plays 22 at the very least. Is that how do you approach a sponsorship as regards your star players?
Okay, what people have to understand about Resolution is Resolution makes a commercial decision about sponsorship. We go and fight for sponsorship just like other people. And I know other Kenyan clubs have also gotten sponsorship from Resolution. And they've also sponsored schools and the like. And they look at benchmarks. And they say winning obviously is a key benchmark. Even in our current contract, there's a provision of where we need to finish. for it to be continued renewal.
Yes.
But also, sponsors are also reasonable people. They're also rational. If you go and you explain to them why this has not happened, but you met your other objectives, I think people can give you a dispensation. But if you look at it for resolution, I can confirm to you they've derived value from the Impala sponsorship, and that's why they've continued
The
renewing it.
2009 season
Yeah.
was
They
a
have.
eye-opener, yes.
And they've also realized that if you do a small sponsorship, it doesn't meet the needs of the club. You're better off doing a big sponsorship, which then positions the club in a better position to succeed. And at the end of the day, even these internationals and what have you, part of the reason why they sponsor you is so that you can get your guys into all these international setups, because they become the face of the club, and people want to be affiliated with them. People talk about winning. If you look at Liverpool, for instance, I don't think they've won the Premier League for 20 years. It hasn't diminished the fact that they're a big club.
And they have a culture.
And they have a culture. They have strong sponsorship from Standard
And
Chartered.
they'll never walk alone. That's
Or they never win anything.
But you see, for me, it's fine. It's fine to talk about Liverpool. I hold Liverpool very close to my heart. I'm a Liverpool supporter. But that's a very different scenario, because they've got TV rights. They've got so many things going for them. They've got 45,000 people coming to their stadiums and filling their stadiums every weekend. We do not have that luxury here. We are sitting with sponsors who and as I say, you say sponsors are reasonable people, and okay, we all know that Resolution are rugby people. Simple. But you've got your other clubs who are dealing with people who are not rugby people, and they jump in and say, wow, you guys came fifth, why should we be in this? Your stadium has 10 people sometimes you have 100. It's neither here nor there, and we're not seeing any value for money, and they say, you know what, we'll move on to the next hot thing, which will become some concert somewhere run by some musicians,
some lip-singing
and
musicians.
they say, you know, rugby doesn't make any sense to us. So
One of the, I'll attack your question. If you look, how did Saracens get 80,000 people to come watch a club game? It's the way the game is packaged and what you give people to come. Floodlit was not a big success last year, because everyone is asking the question, what's the relevance of your event to us? I can come to Floodlit, I can go to the Mingle, I can go to Brew Bistro. So clubs, on the same night. So clubs have to figure out a way, how are we going to package our offering so that we bring the bums to the seats. Rugby on its own is not enough. You must look at the entertainment offering. There's no other way. Benja here runs the Masaku Sevens, and he knows 80% of the guys go there because of entertainment.
Actually, we established it's 25%.
I'm a bit more generous in the
Generous
ratings.
in the
So,
ratings, yes.
the way the club game is structured, like today we have Queens Nakuru, which is a big game. We have Strathmore and KCB, which is a big game equally, because they're all teams at the top four. Top four, yeah. But they're all being played in different venues at different times. Then Nondis don't have a game. They would have had a game at home. Impala don't have a game. So maybe the Impala and Nondis guys will come to Queens. But imagine if you had a packaged double header. 2 p.m. KCB Strath, 4 p.m. Nakuru, Nondi and Queens.
And that brings us to maybe what we're going to discuss in the next segment.
Yeah.
As a chairman, do you think you have not power, but do you think you have is it within your jurisdiction to then request the rugby union to hold 2 major games, for example, in one venue?
At the end of the day, the clubs will continue to hang apart as long as there's mistrust between the clubs. Yeah. And 2, the union can't do everything. The clubs have to own the league. The moment you say that, some people say you want to break
Are the clubs allowed to own the league? Because this is what I'm thinking from the top of my mind, being Masaku diehard. I'm thinking, why can't we on one weekend, those top 2 games today ought to have been played in one venue under floodlit with major entertainment, and Machakos would have provided a perfect scenario.
And Gang, before you answer that, because we'll jump into the next segment, and that's what we want to tackle. We have here a chairman of a top club in this country, and we want to hear his views on how this game can be packaged,
Yes.
how it can become bigger, because then we must all benefit.
I'm gonna touch
Yeah. Something very, very, very key he said there, mistrust
Yes.
between clubs is something that we want to tackle. Please stay tuned. 254 Rugby Show. Now, next segment, we're talking Kenya Rugby Union and how the clubs can come together and make this game the bigger game. Welcome back to the 254 Rugby Show. In our last segment here, again, we're with Oduor Gangla, chairman of Impala Rugby. We were talking about packaging the game and pulling crowds in, and you talked about a sort of mistrust between clubs. Can you give us more insight on that?
I think 2 or 3 years ago, there was this whole Rugby Enterprises Limited, which was greatly misconstrued as being certain clubs trying to break away so that they exclude others from the game and whatever. But I think we're now past that. We've gotten to a stage where all the clubs are hurting because the current game is not sustainable from a club perspective. They don't have sufficient money, and you can't just use sponsorship money to run operations. You need to do bigger things with it in terms of growing the infrastructure and the like, so that long term the club is sustainable. Also, today most clubs, sadly, if the sponsors walk away, they'll be in a very precarious position. But we can create a club product very much along the lines of KPL, where you have the club game on television, you have centralized venues, you package those rights such that there's some revenue coming to the clubs for that. The clubs can then also have proper merchandising. You can start building a fan base so that people know it's Saturday, we're all going to Queens and there's going to be a big game. And then the club starts generating revenue.
You mentioned television, and this is a major aspect of sponsorship in any sport. Our game of rugby is or should be ripe for this kind of thing. The Rugby Union had signed a deal that was must have been signed a little over a year ago. We see no games on TV. How does that affect your preparations and your expectations as a club towards maybe funding your trips or your operations better?
We asked the union for particulars. We're still waiting to get the particulars of that contract. So we've read what we've read. I think Zuku are involved in Safari Sevens, but we have no idea what is happening when.
But you see, for me, Gangla, I mean, I want to cut you short there, and I'm like, for how long are clubs just going to sit down and wait? I mean, this was signed a year ago, and maybe I'm privy to some of the particulars in that sort of contract or what they said. They said the games will be televised, and maybe that's something you went to your sponsors with. That
Yes.
the games will be televised and whatever, and it's not happening. Or maybe you wanted your games televised, you had someone who could shoot your games for you and whatever, and it's not happening. So for how long are clubs just going to sit back and say, we are waiting, and we hope that it happens?
It goes back to the question that the clubs have to realize that their objectives and the union objectives, though we both want the game of rugby to grow, objectives are not the same. Yeah. The union is chasing Kenya Sevens, Kenya 15s, all those other things about the national team, and they've just neglected the club game. That's the reality. I don't think they even care whether the games take off or not.
It's a structural problem. Like Mr. Gangla, we've got the biggest final happening the same day Vodacom Cup is starting, which in essence means we'll be lacking 35 of our players, and therefore watering down the quality of our finals.
Of the Kenya Cup, yeah.
And these are things that were known way in advance. I wonder how come we allowed ourselves to go into the 8th of March to play our finals as opposed to putting it earlier. Because what you explained to me is what we said earlier in the morning when we were watching the Kenya games. There's no structure. What happens when...
Who is to own the structure? Is it the union or the clubs? And that's why the clubs have to work together. Because at the end of the day, you can run this league very well the clubs take ownership of it. I'm convinced, and someone has to give me evidence to show that the union is actually interested in the Kenya Cup.
And that's fine. And the only one who can give us those answers is you. That's why you're here. You're a chairman of a top club in this country, one of the most successful clubs in this country. What are you doing as a clubs to own that structure?
We are just not working together. Everyone is working on their own, and that's the problem.
Is
the
it
moment,
possible?
the moment you try get an initiative of 2, 3, 4 clubs, everyone sort of thinks that this is a conspiracy theory. You want to kick out the chairman, etc. And so spanners come from all the works, from everywhere.
Yes.
And that mistrust has to stop. Yeah.
How do you stop it? How do you stop it, Mr.
People-
How do you stop it?
People must just be honest and be truthful to the game. Be clear. What do you want to achieve as clubs?
The
and
truth is-
limit our mandate.
The truth is,
Yeah.
the Rugby Union of Kenya does not care about the Kenya Cup.
It doesn't.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Now, we care about sevens and give it in excess of 70 million a year, and we can't raise 15th team that is meant to qualify for the World Cup. Our objectives as a union are misconstrued. Now, when Mwangi Bude came in as chairman, the first thing he said is that he was going to take care of the 15th. Is anyone taking him to task, or has he just decided that he's the boss and he's not going to talk to anyone?
Yeah, but you see, and it goes back to the mistrust. There was a very good forum which the old board used to run of the club representatives, where people would meet and caucus and discuss issues around the club games, how to improve it. Even initiatives like Super Series, Chairman's Cup were born out of that. Then some guys come into office and say, this is not in the constitution. If you want this, you call an SGM, etc. So, because of that mistrust, that even today, the only meeting you can have as clubs is an SGM. I mean, that's rubbish. We must work together to grow the game.
Okay,
So-
so hypothetically speaking,
Yeah.
Charlie Kaluvilis was a millionaire of sorts and wanted to
Thank you.
run the Kenya Cup, and came and spoke to all the chairmen of the Kenya Cup sides. Is it possible that somebody can commercially own the Kenya Cup without interference from the Rugby Union?
I think it will, if you work with the clubs, then the clubs can literally dictate how that is going to work. What people seem to forget, and we talk about the union like it's an amorphous body. The union is the body of the
They've
club.
actually showed us that the actual amorphous unit, because here we speak and say there's no structures that the union are set to follow, and we are actually hurting from the lack of those structures. And that's why I'm saying, is there any other way that this can be approached without interference from either side that will actually help the game propel, as opposed to us fighting back and forth?
My sense is this. If you want to get something from the union, you need to put a gun onto Mwangi's head. Yeah?
Yes.
So you come to him and say, we as the club
I have not literally done.
have decided this is how we are going to run. We have our sponsor, we have our broadcast partner, and we are starting on this date. And then, because otherwise, there's no other way it can work.
Yeah, because when this Zuku deal was signed, Charlie, that deal was cut by the union for the clubs.
Yeah.
The clubs have not seen a cent, and have not seen any cameras on
We
that.
had a meeting with the current CEO.
Yes,
There was myself, there was a subcommittee meant to work on this thing.
yes.
And the union was putting together the proposal. We even went for a meeting with one of the broadcast partners together with the chairman and a couple of union executives. But then, getting information out of the union is impossible. So the union goes and says, we are meeting with the clubs to do ABC, but the clubs ask, okay, so what's happened here? There's never
But are they
feedback.
saying, are they giving us a reason why rugby is not on TV? Is there a reason being given, or should we just say,
We've heard that the OB van was coming in January. I think now we are soon going to be in February.
yes,
So everyone had this is happening. We have an interested broadcast partner.
yes?
They're there.
As Impala or
As Impala, we have interested broadcast partners.
Wow.
If we can get together and work with everyone, we don't want to make money out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. We want to ensure there's a good product of Kenya Club Rugby
The candidate
on
was-
television, give sponsors value and give fans a good experience. You can watch rugby at home, you can watch rugby in the stadium. If we can work with all the clubs on that sort of initiative, it is good. There are people who are interested. We even have people who've asked us, how can we get involved in Kenya Cup? Yeah,
Yes.
because it makes a lot of sense. If you look right now, there's no KPL. So the main news article on Friday night is rugby.
Rugby, yes.
The main article on Saturday is rugby. So, but there's no sponsor. I mean, it's ludicrous, to say the least. But then you see, even I sit there and say, okay, so should I take this guy to KRU? I can take him to KRU, he'll be moved from Kenya Cup to go to another product which has nothing to do with the league. So everyone keeps their cards close to their chest.
Yes, and it's very unfortunate.
And obviously this is a topic we can talk about the whole day. And obviously we'll bring you again, and we hope to have some sort of response from the union, bring them on the show, get some sort of answers. Because again, as we said last weekend, we are dying for answers. The public are dying for some answers, and we need to know what's happening so this game can grow. We've done a lot of off the pitch stuff. Let's come back on the pitch real quickly.
Yes.
We've got the Kenya Cup. Let's talk about some positive stuff. Unfortunately, we're not going to discuss Impala today. We discussed the top 4 real quick. Some big games. We've got number 2 playing number 3. KCB plays Strathmore at Ruaraka. Benjamin, KCB went into number 2 position with their bonus point victory over Mwamba, which you predicted last weekend. Well done.
And the other one.
And Strathmore, which you predicted a slim win over Harlequins. How do you see that KCB Strathmore game going?
KCB are going to win this only very slightly.
Very slightly.
Yes.
And where do you see them winning it? Why do you think they'll win this game?
I think having seen Strathmore playing last weekend, the structure was a bit broken, 60th minute going downwards, and KCB are very good and astute in the back play. If they're going to bring this ball in the set piece more, which they probably will, and fight with, and when they realize how weak the Strathmore lineout is, and they kick the ball to the corner, whichever ball they've got, they should be able to have the game.
Gangla, I'll bring you in. I mean, maybe forget about all your noisy neighbors and emotions. Let's use your rugby brain here. Let's talk about Nakuru. Nakuru have to travel to Nairobi, play Kenya Harlequins at home. They haven't won here for 7 years. From what you've seen, number 1 playing number 4, who do you see winning this contest and why?
I'll go with Nakuru. I think Harlequins will struggle in the tight 5, particularly. I think Nakuru has a very resolute forward pack. They're quite athletic, but also they have the big man in the prop. I think Kenya Harlequins, with the retirement of Joeli, it's a very different. And this game is normally won up front. And I don't think Kenya Harlequins has the firepower there. And if Nakuru have Mwita at 10, he controls the game very, very well. To me, I think he's the key player on the Nakuru side in terms of directing the troops.
Quickly, KCB Strathmore, do you agree with Benja, or where do you see that game going?
Yeah, again, I think KCB, I mean, all these big games are won in the engine room. So the team with the better engine room and a good combination of halfbacks. You don't need a good back line in this game, as long as they can defend your fine. But your tight 5 and your halfbacks to ensure you play in the right areas of the pitch, and if you have a good goal kicker, I think you'll win.
That top 4, Benja, I don't know, maybe the Nakuru, after watching maybe the Strathmore Harlequins game,
yes.
do you give this one to Nakuru, and do you see anyone else breaking into that top 4 as you had been predicting?
No, now it's a bit too late for anyone to break it. The outside chance has basically become the outside chance. It's actually no chance anymore after this weekend, because I think the top 4 after today will remain the top 4, of course, with Nakuru staying at the top.
Nakuru Queens, your quick prediction?
Nakuru.
Okay, 2 gentlemen have agreed. It's Nakuru over Queens, KCB over Strathmore. I think it'll be very tight games. I actually see Strathmore, from what I saw last weekend, the kicking boot of Andola could make the difference. I see Strathmore over KCB, and my friends at Harlequins are going to kill me over this, but I honestly see, with the injuries Harlequins have, I see Nakuru edging the Queens over this. Well, we'll see you later tonight when Kenya tackle South Africa in a crucial game that they must win, and we'll be discussing more of these predictions that we made here. Of course, we would have known the results.
And we want to know also that there's the quarterfinals being played
Yeah,
tonight.
the quarterfinals will be played later. We'll be here as we've been all night, last night, all through the morning. We'll continue the same. Keep logged in. Stay tuned. 254 Rugby Show. Get in touch with us, our Twitter handle at 254 Rugby Show, our Facebook page 254 Rugby Show. Tell us your thoughts, your views, your predictions. Remember, you have a chance to win, and we'll talk to you later tonight. Thanks, and keep in touch.